They say love is blind, but I never realized that my own blindness would be used as a weapon against me. For 3 years, I believed I was living a fairy tale. Mark wasn't just my boyfriend. He was my home, my safe haven, and the one person I trusted with every secret of my soul. But while I was busy building a future with him, he was busy turning our love into a circus act. He decided that our 3 years of history weren't as valuable as a few thousand likes and subscribers. Today, I'm going to tell you exactly how a fake loyalty test destroyed my world, and how I turned the tables on the man who thought my dignity was just another piece of content for his YouTube channel. To understand how much this hurt, you have to understand who we were. Mark and I met in college, and for a long time we were that perfect couple everyone envied. He was the guy who would drive 2 hours just to bring me soup when I was sick. But about a year ago, something shifted. Mark became obsessed with becoming a viral sensation. At first, I supported him. I cheered for every milestone, helped him edit his scripts, and believed in his dream. But slowly, the man I loved started to disappear. He didn't look at me with affection anymore. He looked at me through a camera lens. Every date night became a vlog opportunity. Every private moment felt staged. I felt like I was losing him to a screen, but I never imagined he would eventually sacrifice me for it. The turning point happened on a rainy Tuesday night. We were sitting on the couch, scrolling through YouTube, when we came across one of those viral loyalty test videos. You know the ones, where a guy hires a girl to flirt with his friend. I remember feeling a chill down my spine. I looked at Mark and said, "This is so toxic. If you ever felt the need to test me like this, it would mean our relationship is already dead." Mark didn't even blink. He took my hand, looked me dead in the eyes with that sincere look I used to adore, and whispered, "Babe, I would never do that to you. I know exactly who you are, and I trust you more than anyone." It was the most beautiful lie I had ever heard, because at that very moment, his laptop was sitting in the other room with a paid invoice to a professional model named Julian. Before I get into the terrifying messages I started receiving the very next day, I want to ask you all something. Is there ever a justification for testing the person you love? If your partner didn't trust you, would you want to know? Or would you rather stay in the dark? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I really need to know if I'm the only one who thinks this is insane. And if you're new here and want to hear the rest of this journey, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because what comes next is a masterclass in betrayal. It started on a Wednesday morning, less than 24 hours after Mark had looked me in the eyes and promised he'd never betray my trust. I was at work when I got a notification on Instagram. A guy named Julian had messaged me. His profile looked like a catalog, expensive cars, tailored suits, and a smile that looked a little too perfect. His first message was simple. "I saw you at the coffee shop this morning. I couldn't stop thinking about how a woman like you could look so lonely." I ignored it. I get spam all the time, and I certainly didn't feel lonely. But Julian was persistent. By lunch, he had sent another message, and by the time I got home, he had replied to 3 of my old stories with comments that were just on the edge of being inappropriate. The weirdest part wasn't the messages, it was the detail. He knew things. He knew my favorite order at the bakery down the street. He knew the name of the park where I took my dog every evening. A cold pit started forming in my stomach. I felt watched. I felt hunted. That evening, I sat Mark down on the bed, my hands literally shaking as I showed him the DMs. I expected him to be furious. I expected him to be protective. But instead, he just leaned back, scrolled through the messages with a weirdly calm expression, and said, "Wow, this guy is really into you, babe. Honestly, I'm kind of flattered. He's a good-looking dude. Maybe you should just see what he wants. It might be a funny story for later." I remember staring at Mark, my heart hammering against my ribs, wondering if I even knew the man sitting in front of me. I was telling him I felt unsafe, that a stranger was practically stalking me, and my boyfriend was treating it like a joke. He even suggested I keep the conversation going, just to see how far Julian would go. Over the next few days, it got worse. Flowers started arriving at my office with notes that were increasingly intimate. Notes that said things like, "I know he doesn't appreciate you the way I would." I spent those nights crying in the bathroom, feeling like my world was closing in on me. I felt like I was losing my mind, never realizing that the man sitting in the living room was the one proofreading every single text Julian sent me. Have you ever had that gut feeling that something was horribly wrong, but you couldn't put your finger on it? Looking back, the signs were everywhere, but I was blinded by 3 years of history. In a moment, I'm going to tell you about the mistake Mark made, the one tiny slip-up that revealed the hidden cameras and his entire plan. But first, I want to hear from you. If your partner encouraged you to talk to someone who was hitting on you, would you find it suspicious, or would you think they were just confident? Drop a comment below. And stick around, because part 3 is where the mask finally falls off. The breaking point came on a Saturday morning. Mark had gone to the gym, and for the first time in days, the house was quiet. But the silence didn't feel peaceful. It felt heavy. I was trying to distract myself by deep cleaning the living room, moving books and decor that hadn't been touched in months. I reached up to the very top shelf of our tall oak bookcase, a spot I usually ignore, when my hand brushed against something cold and plastic. I moved a heavy vase out of the way, and that's when I saw it. A tiny, rhythmic blue light, blinking like a heartbeat from inside a hollowed-out book. My breath hitched. It was a 4K spy camera, perfectly angled to capture the sofa where I sat every single night. I felt a wave of nausea so strong I had to sit down on the floor. I sat there for what felt like hours, staring at that little blue light. My mind was racing, trying to find a logical explanation. Maybe it was for security. Maybe we had a burglar? But deep down, I already knew. I walked over to Mark's desk. He usually keeps his laptop locked and with him at all times, but in his rush to get to the gym, he had left it plugged in and awake. My fingers were trembling so hard I could barely use the trackpad. I opened his recent files folder, and there it was, a video project titled, "Loyalty Test Gone Wrong?" She almost cheated. I clicked on it, and my heart shattered into a million jagged pieces. There was the footage. Footage of me crying in the kitchen. Footage of me showing Mark the DMs from Julian. And worst of all, there were the screen recordings of Mark's phone.
At first, she tried to convince herself that it was nothing, just a misunderstanding created by stress, emotions, and the overwhelming nature of the day. She kept telling herself that she was overthinking, because that's what the mind does when it doesn't want to accept something painful. But even after trying to calm herself down, that feeling didn't leave. It stayed there, quietly growing in the background, becoming heavier with every passing minute. She started observing more carefully, not openly, not in a way that would make anyone notice, but silently, from a distance, trying to understand what was really happening. And the more she paid attention, the more uncomfortable everything became. Her husband's behavior was no longer something she could easily ignore. It wasn't just random distractions anymore, it was patterns. He would step away at specific times, always for short moments, always returning with the same expression, as if nothing had happened, as if he was carefully maintaining a version of himself for everyone else to see. And that version started to feel unfamiliar to her. Still, she didn't jump to conclusions. She didn't want to believe the worst without proof, because nobody wants their happiest day to turn into something painful based on assumptions alone. But sometimes, truth doesn't wait for certainty. It reveals itself whether you are ready or not. And then came the moment that changed everything completely. She saw him again across the reception, but this time it wasn't just a passing glance or a confusing detail. This time, she noticed everything clearly. The distance he kept, the way his body turned slightly away when others were near, and most importantly, the woman. The same woman she had noticed earlier. But now, something felt different. It wasn't just proximity anymore, it was familiarity. The kind of familiarity that doesn't belong between strangers.
I didn't scream. I didn't throw his laptop across the room, though every nerve in my body was screaming at me to destroy everything he owned. Instead, I felt a strange, icy calm wash over me. I realized that if Mark wanted a show, I was going to give him the most unforgettable finale of his life. I looked at the hidden camera in the bookshelf, then at the one he had tucked behind the television, and I smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had already won. I knew he was checking his phone at the gym. probably watching the live feed to see if his boring girlfriend was doing anything viral-worthy. So I gave him exactly what he wanted to see. I sat on the sofa, picked up my phone, and pretended to type a long, emotional message to Julian. I could almost feel Mark's excitement through the screen. I knew he was probably sweating with joy, thinking he finally had the cheating footage he needed for his million-view masterpiece. But while I pretended to be cheating on camera, I was actually texting my brother and a few close friends. I told them everything. I told them to bring a truck and meet me at the house in 30 minutes. While Mark was busy fantasizing about his YouTube fame, I was methodically stripping my life out of our shared home. I didn't take a single thing that belonged to him. I packed my clothes, my jewelry, my documents, and even the cat's water bowl. Every minute I spent in that house felt like a layer of skin was being peeled off, but I kept my face perfectly neutral for his cameras. I was giving him the best acting performance of my life. It started on a Wednesday morning, less than 24 hours after Mark had looked me in the eyes and promised he'd never betray my trust. I was at work when I got a notification on Instagram. A guy named Julian had messaged me. His profile looked like a catalog, expensive cars, tailored suits, and a smile that looked a little too perfect. His first message was simple. I saw you at the coffee shop this morning. I couldn't stop thinking about how a woman like you could look so lonely. I ignored it. I get spam all the time, and I certainly didn't feel lonely. But Julian was persistent. By lunch, he had sent another message, and by the time I got home, he had replied to 3 of my old stories with comments that were just on the edge of being inappropriate. The weirdest part wasn't the messages, it was the detail. He knew things. He knew my favorite order at the bakery down the street. He knew the name of the park where I took my dog every evening. A cold pit started forming in my stomach. I felt watched. I felt hunted. That evening, I sat Mark down on the bed, my hands literally shaking as I showed him the DMs. I expected him to be furious. I expected him to be protective. But instead, he just leaned back, scrolled through the messages with a weirdly calm expression, and said, "Wow, this guy is really into you, babe. Honestly, I'm kind of flattered. He's a good-looking dude. Maybe you should just see what he wants. It might be a funny story for later." I remember staring at Mark, my heart hammering against my ribs, wondering if I even knew the man sitting in front of me. I was telling him I felt unsafe, that a stranger was practically stalking me, and my boyfriend was treating it like a joke. He even suggested I keep the conversation going, just to see how far Julian would go. Over the next few days, it got worse. Flowers started arriving at my office with notes that were increasingly intimate. The silence of my new apartment was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. But while I was finally breathing again, Mark's world was going up in flames. Within 24 hours of me leaving, he realized the finale of his vlog wasn't going to be the cheating scandal he hoped for. It was a documentary of his own cruelty. He tried to call me 300 times. He sent emails, DMs, and even Venmo requests just to get a message through. He went from "I'm sorry" to "you're overreacting" to "you ruined my life" in a matter of hours. But the real shocker came when he actually had the audacity to upload a video titled, "My girlfriend left me because of a prank." He sat there in front of his ring light, rubbing his eyes to force out fake tears, telling his audience that I had no sense of humor, and that I was abandoning him when he needed me most. But Mark made one fatal mistake. He underestimated the internet. Because I had the screenshots of his laptop. I had the invoice he paid to Julian. And I had the footage of him laughing while I was crying in fear. I didn't want to be a content creator. But I wasn't going to let him lie about my character. I posted a single thread on Reddit with all the evidence. It went viral in hours. The model Julian even came forward, admitting Mark told him to push the boundaries to see if I'd break. Mark's comments section turned into a war zone. His sponsors dropped him by the end of the week, and his subscriber count dropped faster than his dignity. He didn't just lose a girlfriend. He lost the very thing he sacrificed me for, his career. The most frustrating part, though, was his family. His mother actually called me, screaming that I was heartless for taking my furniture and leaving her son in an empty house. She told me that men make mistakes and that a good woman should have stayed and helped him grow. It's funny how people only talk about forgiveness when they are the ones who got caught. I told her that if she loved his content so much, she could go live in that empty house and be his next guest star. I blocked them all. I chose my peace over their drama. I realized that some people don't love you. They love the way they can use you. And once you stop being useful, they show you their true face. It's been 6 months now. I'm in therapy. I'm rediscovering who I am without a camera in my face. And I've never felt more alive. Mark is still trying to rebrand his channel, but no one is buying it. So I'm turning it over to you, the jury of the internet. Was I wrong for leaving a 3-year relationship without a single conversation? Was I the *** hole for exposing his secrets to the world and ruining his dream? Or did I just give him the exactly what he deserved? The ultimate reality check? Drop your final verdict in the comments. Team her or Team Mark? If you enjoyed this journey, please subscribe for more deep dives into the wildest stories on Reddit. Until next time, remember, your love is not content. Stay safe out there.